Okay, I've got 6 o'clock, so why don't we go ahead and get started then? Rebecca, do you want to get started?
You bet. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. My name is Rebecca Miller, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters here in Clallam County. The League of Women Voters, United for the United States, is a national, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization whose purpose is to promote the informed and active participation of citizens in government. I really want to underscore the primary tenet of our organization, and that is nonpartisanship. In the last 101 years, yes, we turned 100 in 2020, since we were established, we have never endorsed or opposed a candidate or a political party at any level of government. So I hope that everybody here tonight is feeling really comfortable about being in a place where there are going to be hard but fair questions asked, and that we are not against or for anybody in this room. We really want to make this available for residents of Clallam County. We are ardent about positions, but not people. We are truly grateful and impressed by those of you who are participating in tonight's forum. And that means the candidates, the audience, and the local league members who work very hard to make all of this happen. I'd also like to make a particular acknowledgement of the chair of our Voter Services Committee, Nell Clausen. So I'd like to now introduce you to Linda Benson, who is my predecessor as president of the league here in Clallam County. She's also a current state board member, and she's going to be moderating this evening. So thank you so much for being here, and here's Linda.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'd like to just ask everyone who is not in the particular candidate forum we're doing right now, if you would please stop your video and make sure that you stay mute. That will make things go a lot smoother for everyone. I want to thank the North Olympic Library System for co-sponsoring this forum. We're hoping for the general election that we're going to be able to do some in some of the libraries. Thank you also to Angie Scalf for handling our technology, and Bonnie Bliss Banish for operating our timer. I'll just repeat what Rebecca said. We're a nonpartisan organization, and we welcome both men and women. And we take no positions on candidates or on parties. It's sometimes confusing because what we do is, after a formal study process, we do take positions on issues. And so sometimes it gets confusing, but we take positions on issues, and we are loud and clear about how we feel about that. So if you're interested in finding out about our positions, we have a really good informative website, lwvcla.org. And on there, you will find, among a lot of general information that's helpful, you will find what our positions are. So if you're interested, you can go to the website and take a look at those. On that website is also our TRI brochure. TRI means they represent you. And this involves a list of all of your local elected officials with contact information at the local, state, and national level. And you may also pick up hard copies of this brochure at our public libraries. Beginning on July 9th, you can go online. Here's another one you might want to jot down, vote411.org. This is a service provided by the State League of Women Voters. And if you go to that site, you will be able to see what's on your ballot, including candidates' written responses to questions on important issues in the Voter's Guide. You can check your voter registration, and you can discover upcoming debates in your area. Voters deserve to know where the candidates stand on important issues before you fill out your ballot. Vote 411 does not speak on behalf of candidates. Instead, it provides all candidates with an opportunity to answer the most pressing questions in their communities in their own words, allowing candidates to speak directly to you, the voters, through forums and Vote 411 platform ensures that all candidates' views are accurately represented. The views expressed here are those of the candidates and not of the sponsors of this forum. For the primary election, we do forums for races that have more than 2 candidates. When a candidate declines to participate and we still have 2, in order to be fair, we go ahead with the forum. Many other candidates will appear on the general election ballot, and we will be doing forums for these as well. We're hopeful that we will be able to do those in person like we did in the old days. And we're going to be publishing those dates, so you can save the dates for those. It'll be the end of September. In a few days, this forum will be posted on our YouTube channel, which is another feature that you can access through our website. Tonight, we have candidates who will be on the primary ballot for Sequim School District Board of Directors Position 4, Fire District 3, and Public Hospital District 2. We'll present these panels in that order with a 5-minute break in between. We will begin with Sequim School District Position 4. In the order of their filing date, each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and answer 3 questions. Your qualifications for office, how you intend to deal with the key issues confronting your area of responsibility, and what is the primary goal you hope to accomplish your first year in office. When we've completed opening statements, we'll have questions that you have sent in, the audience. Some were concerning the same issue. Actually, many were concerning the same issue this time on all 3 of them. So what I've done is combine some. So the wording that you hear tonight may not be exactly your question, but the issue will be dealt with. So closing statements will again be 2 minutes in the reverse order. Bonnie, would you give us a little short tutorial on the timing, please, before we start?
Sure. You will see that there is a screen square that says timer. And once a person starts to answer a question, then you'll see a countdown timer. Our timer's for either 2 minutes or 1 minute for this form. And it has a purple background initially. So as the timer continues to count down, after a while that will turn to yellow. That means that you're getting close to the end of your time. And then finally, it will turn red and say stop. If you are finishing a sentence, go ahead and finish your sentence and then please stop. So that's basically a little idea of what the timer looks like. Once we get to the stop sign, then I'll toggle back to just the timer screen and then we'll hit the timing button again.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're ready to start now. The 5-member school board of directors sets the policies that guide Sequim's public education from kindergarten through grade 12. All voters within the Sequim school district elect the directors, who generally serve a 4-year term unless appointed to fill a vacant position. 2 members serve in at-large positions, and the remaining 3 are elected from specific geographic areas. The board selects a superintendent to administer adopted policies. The board is the final authority on all matters concerning the district. We will now have opening statements from 2 of the school board candidates for position 1. One of the candidates declined to participate. Rachel Tax, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Rachel Tax. I am a mother of 4. For my qualifications, that's kind of my main qualification, is that I am a young mom. I am 20 days out from graduating with my business management bachelor's degree. I don't have any professional experience because I've been raising my kids, but I do work part-time at Quality Inn and Suites here in Sequim, as well as, like I said, I have my college degree almost done, and that's been all online. How I would handle the key issues facing the Sequim School Board is through community outreach. We are a community-wide school district, which means everyone needs to have their voice be heard. And I want to make sure that every community member feels that they are valued. My first year, again, that's kind of with the community outreach stuff. I want to enhance the cooperation between the community and the school board, as well as, get the kids involved. The kids are the ones that are dealing with the teachers day to day. They're the ones that are dealing with how the program or how the school board's decisions are affecting them. And the ones in high school, they are really the ones that have the ability to help us figure out how best to improve the schools. I've been working with a couple of the teenagers throughout different volunteer activities that I do, and they are a great group of kids, but we could do better for them through community outreach and through the support of the school board and getting just everyone on the same page. And yeah, that's kind of me.
Okay, thank you. Derek Huntington, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello, I'm Derek Huntington. I've lived in Sequim for 25 years. I started going to Sequim schools in the 4th grade. I graduated from Sequim in 2004. I have nieces and nephews in the district, as well as several friends with kids in the district. And my daughter is also currently a student in the district as well. She's 9 and will be entering the 4th grade in the fall. She's a special needs student with an IEP. And I think that kind of gives me a different perspective on different things with the school that maybe the other candidates can't give. And I'm running for the school board to advocate not just for her, but for all the students, the staff, and the parents. I don't have any previous experience running for office, but I think the fact that I'm the only candidate that has gone to the school district and has been around it because of, you know, family and friends being in it and their kids being in it kind of gives me qualifications. And as far as key issues, it's a team effort. It takes everybody, you know, the staff, the students, the school board, everybody to deal with the issues. My primary goals would be to make sure that we have a, you know, good superintendent. I also think that the district's image and trust has been a little damaged, and I think we need to repair that. And so I'd work on doing that, and also trying to get you know, a robust STEM and trades program available for students, because we need to prepare them for life after school. That's what I've got.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll start with the questions that people sent in. And the first question, Mr. Huntington, you'll go first on this.
Okay.
What experience have you had in a classroom or working at a school? You have 1 minute.
One time I volunteered for my daughter's class in she was in the 1st grade. They were doing different activities, and me and my wife went there and helped out for their activities. That's kind of what I've done.
Okay, Ms. Tax?
So my oldest just finished kindergarten. So with COVID, I haven't had the opportunity to be a volunteer parent in the classroom. However, in high school, I did do a internship where I was interning with the 3rd grade teacher. And then for the second half of the semester, I was at a middle school with history. I did that because at the time, my goal was to be in education. And I did do 3 semesters of education before I had to drop out of college right after high school to support my husband. And then when I went back to school, I decided to switch to the business management. But I have been doing that all online. So I am completely on top of the virtual schooling. So, you know, COVID's kind of been a little tough with the volunteer aspect, but I plan on being in the classrooms as much as I can once they accept parent volunteers again.
Okay, thank you. The next one is a little bit different. We had similar questions from more than one voter. about teaching critical race theory in our schools. So I have a two-part question about it, and you will each have 2 minutes to answer it. First, what is critical race theory? And secondly, do you believe that teaching the good, the bad, and the ugly of our country's history is important for future generations? And Ms. Tax, you're first. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. I could be totally off on what my understanding of critical race theory is. My understanding is that it is teaching students the good, the bad, the ugly of our history, but also preventing teachers from making students, feel bad about what race they are. And like I said, I could be totally off on this. So, but in my opinion, the good, the bad, the ugly of our American history needs to be taught. Racism is real. We experience it daily. Maybe not here in Sequim as much, but our kids won't always stay here in Sequim. They're going to go elsewhere. They need to, be able to understand that there's different cultures in our country. We're a melding pot of everything. No race should be superior to another, but no race should be inferior to another either. And it's important that our kids learn that. It's important that they realize that people like the founding fathers weren't 100% perfect. They had great ideas, they had great thoughts, they did a great thing for the country, but there were some bad things that they were doing too. This is kind of a little off, but when I was in first grade, I lived in South Carolina. I was bused past 3 other elementary schools because they had to keep the ratios of white students and African-American students and everything. So, maybe not here in Sequim we have this issue, but we do have multiple races here and everyone needs to be treated equally.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Huntington, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I haven't really looked into critical race theory too much. I kind of think that Rachel kind of summed up what it was from what I was reading. But I think that, our mission is to help develop functioning and capable adults who can provide for themselves and their families. Family values are taught in the house, not at school, and we need to stand our lane and provide a proper education for our children.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I will go on to question 3. What are the leadership responsibilities of a board member, especially when interacting with parents and community members? And so, Mr. Huntington, you're first this time.
It's just we need to listen and communicate with everybody and make sure that everybody's concerns and issues are being addressed, and that nobody's left out.
Okay, thank you. This is going to go fast. Ms. Tax, same question to you. You have 1 minute.
Okay. Basically the same thing, the board director, we need to listen to the community and the parents and the teachers. And for any issue that is going to affect the general school community, parents, community, teachers, they all need to be involved. And it's the director's job to make sure that they are being heard. It's also, making sure that the policies that are put in place are going to be for the benefit of the children and not based on politics. And that's kind of my thought on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question. The Sequim School District has been successfully sued by now former employees. Undoubtedly, workplace bullying has occurred. What specific actions need to be taken so that voters are assured our tax money goes for education rather than litigation, and schools are a safe place for all who enter? Let's see, Ms. Tax, you're first this time. 1 minute.
Right? That is a very good question. The biggest thing I can think of is making sure that teachers have an outlet, that they feel safe, they can talk to somebody about any issues they are having, regardless of who it's with. If it's with another, fellow employee, if it's with a parent, any issue that they have, they need to be aware that they have sources that they can go to that are not going to, side with the other person just because of who the other person is. That's kind of been one of the big things, like the question that mentioned the bullying in the workplace. Teachers are people too. Educators, they're just like our kids. They're going to bully each other because we're all human, and we need to make sure that everyone feels safe in going and reporting that, whether it's the board member or an employee.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Huntington?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's, they have to be able to feel safe and comfortable with going to work and not having to worry about being bullied. And if they are, then they need to be able to go to somebody and make sure that they're going to listen and take care of the situation for them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question number 5. What should the school board do to reduce the risk of gun violence in our schools? And Mr. Huntington, you're first this time, 1 minute.
Maybe they should do some kind of security checks if they think there's an issue. Always lock down the schools if they hear anything about any active shooter anywhere. They can practice drills to make sure the students know what to do in those situations. Anything like that is always good. To have programs in place to help make sure that everybody's safe and knows what to do in those situations.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tax, you have 1 minute.
Okay. Basically the same. Gun violence is one of those things that can kind of be a little iffy to talk about sometimes, but making sure that parents are able to properly educate their children about gun safety. It's not something that the schools should be doing. However, there are kids that are going to have access to guns and their parents aren't going to tell them anything. The main thing, honestly, though, is making sure that our students' mental health is taken care of. Most of the time when, you have those gun violence, it's always by somebody who needs help but isn't getting the support they need. And so making sure that the students feel they are supported is the most important thing in mitigating any sort of violent actions that could occur.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question that was on many voters' minds. After a year of remote hybrid learning, what are some lessons and takeaways from the pandemic in the area of the support students and families need and the inequalities that worsened? What can be done going forward to address these issues? Let's see, Ms. Tax, you're first this time, 1 minute.
Okay. That's a very good question. I know there are some areas here in the community that cannot get internet access. And I had a couple of friends who were really struggling with that aspect and trying to get their kids to be able to do their schoolwork. One thing that I think we've all learned is some students are going to excel with the virtual learning and some students aren't. So being able to kind of support those that do better with the virtual learning, but also being able to support the families. I know we had the mobile hotspot with the bus stuff over at JCPenney, and that was a great resource, but it wasn't enough because sitting in a car to do homework is really uncomfortable. So just finding ways to make sure that all students have access to either the internet or proper electronics is going to be a huge thing going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Huntington?
Yeah, I kind of agree because with my situation with my daughter, we had a lot of issues with stuff not working and always having things messed up. And we always had to go back to school, but they were always able to help us get new stuff so that she could do it. She had very good support from her teacher, which I also think was important because if her teacher wasn't able to communicate with her, she wouldn't have been able to do as good. So I think that was a big thing, but I know a lot of kids didn't seem to want to do it as much. So I'm thinking maybe they needed more support in school that they couldn't get, which is unfortunate. But I think it was helpful to have the school because they did provide her with the stuff she needed.
Okay, thank you. Do you support the Sequim Education Association's role in helping inform decisions made in the school district? Mr. Huntington, you're first. 1 minute.
Maybe it depends on what the decision is. I think certain things need to be decided outside of school, but certain things can be in the school. So I think it depends on what it is.
Okay. Ms. Tax,
Can I actually have you repeat the question? I want to make sure I heard everything correctly.
do you support the Sequim Education Association's role in helping inform decisions made in the school district?
My answer is yes. This Education Association is a great resource. They have a ton of training that they do quite frequently for teachers, for school board members, that just help them, keep their everything the same across the board. They make it, localized to help support the community's needs for their students, but it's also to help make sure that all the teachers are on the same page. So I think that their involvement in the schools is important.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. What is a superintendent's role in relation to the board? Ms. Tax, you're first. 1 minute.
Okay. The superintendent is there to kind of keep the board aware of what is happening in the schools. The superintendent deals with the administration of everything and making sure that overall everything runs smoothly with the schools. And they're the ones that go to the school board and talk about any issues, funding, trainings that they think need to be done, policies. So they're kind of a go-to person for the schools to go to the board.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Huntington?
The superintendent, they make sure that the policies and decisions that the board decide are being followed and that everybody is doing what they are supposed to be doing as far as what the policies are.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Our last question. Recruitment for doctors and other professionals is difficult on the peninsula. One stated reason is that medical professionals want to be certain that their children will have the opportunity to attend innovative schools with a robust curriculum. What are some strengths of Sequim schools that could be promoted to entice new professionals and young families? And what are some needs that should be addressed to improve our school curriculum? Mr. Huntington, you're first.
I think the big strength is that the teachers all kind of work together and make sure that all the students are where they need to be and they help all the students get to where they need to be. I don't know. I think for weaknesses, there's just certain curriculums that maybe aren't as easy to follow, especially for certain students. Like my daughter has certain issues with certain curriculums. Maybe they could figure a way to make them easier for other students. I think that may be the only thing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tax?
Okay. So some of the strengths that I have seen here in Sequim School District is communication, at least for me, has always been pretty easy. It's always been really like cooperative. My oldest did speech therapy through the schools when he was 3 until he was 5, right before he started kindergarten. And then he did a little bit during kindergarten. And the communication from the school during that time was just phenomenal. So I think that's like one of our big strengths. One of the things that we could do to improve is offer, like Derek said at the beginning, STEM and trade profession opportunities for the high school students, but also just, the community involvement, just making sure that families feel welcome, not just at the schools, but in the community overall will be a huge factor in people wanting to move here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now going to move to the candidates' 2-minute closing statements, which will be in the reverse order from their opening statements. Mr. Huntington, you have 2 minutes to sum it up.
All right, well, mine's really kind of short. I just wanted to, thank my family and my friends, thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on and making sure that it was a success. Thanks to everyone that took the time to watch this, everyone that sent in questions. They were really good and I appreciate those. Thank you to my, to Rachel and other candidates and to all the voters, and hopefully, I'll get my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tax,
Okay.
you have 2 minutes.
Yep. Following right along with Derek, thank you so much for putting this forum on. I hope that it's very helpful for the community. And there were great questions asked tonight. I have only lived here for 4 years, but during that time we've been involved with the Sequim School District because of my son being in the speech therapy. So we've been involved the whole time. And I think that, we have a really great board as is, and we have a great school system. We can work together with the community, with the schools, with the teachers, and like I said, with the students themselves to just improve our schools even more. And yeah, that's kind of my thing. So thank you again for putting this on. It's been great.
Okay. Thank you to both of you for being willing to run for office and put yourself through this torture here tonight. We appreciate your coming. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 5-minute break before we have our next forum, which will be for Fire District 3. I'm looking at my clock. So we will start about a little before 6:40, about 20 till, maybe a little sooner than that. So if everybody can just take a little short break and we'll be back.
Hey, Linda, before everybody goes, did you by chance get my text? I think we wanted to clarify what position this is that we were voting. There seemed to have been a discrepancy for the position. So
let me look it up again here. We have position 4.
Okay.
School district position 4.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll see everybody in about 5 minutes. All right, so I think we're ready to start again. We will now begin our forum for Fire District 3, Position 1. The Board of Fire Commissioners are responsible for: they determine levels of service and establish goals, determine the type and level of funding, approving budgets and tax levies, establish policies and approve operational procedures, employ key personnel and supervise the fire chief, guide strategic planning, and represent the fire district to the public. Tonight, we have 2 of the 3 candidates for this office. In order of their filing date, they will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and answer 3 questions. Your qualifications for the office, how you intend to deal with key issues confronting your area of responsibility, and what is the primary goal you hope to accomplish in the first year of office. When we have completed opening statements, we'll again have questions that the audience has sent in. Some were concerning the same issue again, and so these questions were combined. Closing statements will be 2 minutes in the reverse order of the opening statements. So basically, we'll follow the same routine we did with the first one. And so we will begin with opening statements. Mr. Nichols, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, just to introduce myself, my name's Jeff Nicholas. I moved to the Sequim area in 2015. I was a career Navy officer for 30 years. I rose to the rank of captain in the Navy. During that time, I developed leadership skills and served in a wide variety of staff and seagoing positions. I have a subspecialty within the Navy as a plans officer and a political military affairs officer, which basically made my job planning and budgeting for operations and contingencies. I've served on a number of disasters as a leader, primarily as either an ops or a plans director for a number of disasters, which introduced me to the first responder community firsthand. Space Shuttle Challenger was one. Egyptian Air crash. I was actually in the Pentagon at 9/11, and also I worked Katrina and also in Indonesia. I believe these are places where I learned the tools that you need to provide a plan and a strategic plan that either short or long term that any type of organization needs to function. After I retired from the Navy, I went to work for FLIR Systems, which is a defense contractor that specialized in electro-optics. And I was a business development manager and a capture manager, which meant that I had to develop a budget within the company to go out and capture their contract, bring it back within the company, and then develop a plan to go forward. Since 2018, I've been a volunteer firefighter, EMT, and I do about 100 calls a year with the fire district. So I have a good idea of what's on the fire, what's going on within the district.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shamley, you have 2 minutes.
I can't see the timer.
Okay, I'll let you know when it turns yellow. How about that?
That'll work. Thank you.
I'll watch it for you.
Good evening. I'm Dwayne Shamley. I'm running for fire commissioner based on my 43 years of experience in the fire service, starting as a volunteer firefighter and retiring as a deputy chief. From 1978 to 2000, I worked in an area that grew from 40,000 residents with 2 paid and 1 volunteer fire station to a municipal fire department consisting of 5 full-time staffed stations, 65 career firefighter personnel, 3-person engine companies, paramedics, hazmat specialists, truck companies, and approximately 40 volunteer firefighters serving the city of Moreno Valley with a population of approximately 142,000. Our fire district is facing similar growth issues today and is challenged to meet the continual needs of our growing population. I support the proposed reorganization plan for the district and the addition of the 3 battalion chiefs to streamline both the administrative and tactical effectiveness of fire department operations. This will also increase management efficiency and overall tactical and workplace safety for all personnel. I will be totally engaged in the proposed reorganization plan and assist in the planning that will ensure that the department is staffed appropriately, that our firefighters have the tools to do their job safely and effectively, that our community has a high level of fire department service, and our taxpayers are represented for fiscal responsibility.
The color is yellow and turning red. So you can finish your thought.
I feel I'm most qualified based on my fire service career and having been a member of city council staff developing budgets, policies, and procedures for fire department operations.
Okay, thank you. I just got a note from our techie that says Mr. Shumley is likely on a tablet. Are you using a tablet or a regular computer?
I'm on a regular computer.
Oh,
It's a Mac.
okay. It's a Mac. Okay, I don't know if she has an idea about it then. We'll see if she comes on with another idea for you so you can see the timer. Okay, thank you both.
You should see in the top corner something that says view. And if you click on it and change from speaker view to gallery view, you should be able to see all the videos.
Does she mean right there?
Otherwise, you just have to look at your pretty face the whole time.
And I will rudely interrupt you. Are you on gallery view?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, you should see the timer now.
yes.
Okay, good. All right, good. So here we go. Here's the first question. Particularly relevant with this hot weather we've had, what components should be included in a comprehensive strategy regarding wildlife prevention, wildfire prevention, excuse me, and how can this be planned for the budget? And you will have 1 minute, and Mr. Nichols, you're first.
I think this subject could be dealt with with public information in a lot of respects. Being more outgoing with the public as we approach the time frame, meeting with different groups, public service within the announcements within the local media, talking about things we can do to eliminate the threat to the buildings and to our forests. I am very nervous, and I am sure Mr. Chomley is also very nervous about the upcoming 4th of July holiday. There has to be education to the public on this issue and how important it is and how dangerous it is in an area as we find ourselves. It's a heavily wooded area. Grass is dry. It happens every year. Burn restrictions always come in place, and I'm glad they came early this year. I guess that's where I stand on it at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shumley, you have 1 minute.
I would like to echo what Captain Nicholas has stated. I agree with everything he said, included in that. The need for defensible space around structures is a critical issue. Public information to make people aware of the need for critical space. Many people have the thinking that when they call 911, a fire engine is going to come to their house. If we have a major wildfire, there's not going to be a fire engine available to come to every house. So everybody has to take fire prevention as a priority in order to provide their own safety and, like I say, provide defensible space around their structures.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, what are some issues going on right at the ground level with firefighters and first responders, not at the administration level, but the folks who actually mitigate the emergencies? And what are their needs? What do you need? What do they need to be more effective and safer? Mr. Shumley, you're first.
Okay, I have not had direct contact with the firefighters at station level. I did reach out to the local union, and they felt it would not be appropriate to talk with me as they support another candidate. I can understand that. My concern would be, based on my experience, that safety of the firefighters on the ground is the priority issue. If the firefighters on the ground don't have a safe working environment, they would not be able to provide the necessary services to the general public when the need arises.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nichols?
Yes, one of the issues that we face here in the community is the staffing levels and the requirements under the WAC code and also NFPA. Currently, we don't meet those levels. There needs to be part of a strategic plan, given the growth of the area, the distance between calls, the fact that in a lot of cases, a unit is technically out of service because the paramedic assigned to that engine company is off with somebody at direct, taking somebody to OMC. So we have a staffing level problem. The area is changing. It's becoming a larger area. The distances aren't getting any shorter, and we aren't meeting the WAC code for response. That needs to be a key function within our strategic plan. And as I say, a strategic plan is my key issue. There isn't one right now, hasn't been since 2005, and there needs to be.
Okay, thank you. So this is another question that goes to staffing. Fire departments are evolving into agencies that cover a wide spectrum of emergencies and are expected to always perform in a current and ethical way. What leadership experience outside of the fire department do you possess to ensure Fire District 3 continues to meet these challenges? Let's see. Mr. Nichols, you're first this time.
Okay. As a Navy officer and as a planner in many Navy or interagency disasters, we've had to look at staffing and we've had to plan for that. Right now, we seem to go from crisis to crisis, and one of the crises we're facing right now as a department is we're short of people. We're okay on a given day, but we're driving around like a vehicle without a spare in a lot of cases. There's been a lot of general alarms because the department is overwhelmed with calls for EMS. So we're calling in volunteers to staff what would normally be the staff station during a period of time when they're out of people. And the troops that do the job are very concerned about this, that they don't feel they're providing the best they can to the public in the respect that they're not there as fast as they could be with the gear that they want to be. And we got to plan that into the budget.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shomley?
Well, this is kind of a difficult question for me, Linda, because my total career has been in the fire service. Other than my limited military training early on, all of my training as far as relationships with different levels of operational people and my training for emergency operations has all been within the fire service. So I'm kind of at a loss to really answer that question per se.
Okay, thank you. So the next question we have is, what role do you think the fire district plays in other disasters and weather-related emergencies? And Mr. Shomley, you're first.
Well, the fire department generally is one of the lead agencies in any natural disaster. Natural disaster falls under the purview of the county sheriff's department, and generally speaking, the sheriff will work in concert with the fire department or the responsible responding fire agency to provide emergency response, logistical support, and things of this nature. It's critical that we provide our firefighter personnel, including the volunteers and the community emergency response teams, with the training that's necessary to respond to these types of incidents.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols, you have 1 minute.
To go along with what Mr. Tromley said, we were involved as a fire department with the COVID-19 response. During that period of time, I served in the Emergency Coordination Center as the community liaison officer. And we were able to, with the help of the community and with the support of the community, we were able to use CERT to develop a food program, a food delivery program, and ultimately the SHOT program, which just ended recently. But that coordination is something that I've had to do in the past with different type of operations, and we're learning to do that here. And I think the Sequim Fire Department, along with the city of Sequim, did an excellent job of working, within that interagency group. And then we brought the public in to help us as well. So it's a concerted community effort to come together whenever you have one of these disasters and coordinate it through some people that have been trained to do so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question. Do you feel when the commissioners turned down a federal SAFER grant in 2017, that was a wise decision or a foolish decision? Mr. Shomley, you're first.
At the time that occurred, I happened to be attending that commission meeting, as I have attended most of the commission meetings since moving here 2.5 years ago. That was a very difficult decision for the commissioners, and it was basically a budget-driven item, and that when that grant ran out, the budget at that time would not support the continuing hiring of that individual. This was before the levy lid lift occurred, and the future budget was simply not available to provide that continuing position. So that, as I say, was a very difficult decision for the commissioners to make. And I feel they were fiscally responsible in making that decision.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols?
I don't agree that that was a good decision even at the time, but it does reflect the lack of strategic planning on the part of our district at this point. Some of the problems we have with Manning are as a direct result of not accepting that grant. We went through the rigor of developing the case of why we needed the grant. We presented that to, the awarding authorities, who said, yes, we agree, you need that money. And you made your case of why you needed it. And then it came back to the board. And I think a lot of people were stunned that, okay, we've made our case. We spent a lot of time doing that. And all of a sudden we decided that's not a good idea because maybe we don't know what the future is going to look like. Well, part of the job of the board and of the leadership of the department is to look at that future and try to figure out what it is and to make the right decision to build your organization to meet the future.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have another question that Bonnie, just so you get a heads up, we're going to give 2 minutes on because we're a little bit ahead of time. And this is an important question, and it has to do with a lot of things we've already touched on. As you probably know, there are different insurance ratings for addresses within Fire District 3, depending on the distance from fire hydrants and fire stations. Properties that are more than 5 road miles from a staffed fire station pay more for their property insurance than properties within 5 miles of a station. At least one station within District 3 is not staffed at all with either paid employees or volunteers. This leaves residents paying higher insurance rate for less service. What ideas do you have for recruiting and retaining volunteers at your unstaffed fire stations? And what challenges stand in the way of staffing all the stations? So we're going to give you each 2 minutes on this one. Mr. Nichols, you go first.
Yeah, as a volunteer, this one is kind of close to my heart. One of the problems that we have is retaining our volunteers. And so we do wind up with stations that are not manned. I don't think that there has been a concerted effort within the department to make a realistic, attractive program for our volunteers. I live out on Diamond Point. I'm very fortunate. We have a very active volunteer group up here, but most of the other stations do not. The way we use our volunteers may need to be something that we really have to take a look at. Are we training them in the right thing? Are we signing them to the right places? And part of a strategic planning process to look at that task. What do we really expect these guys to do? Where are we assigning them? How are we mentoring them? Is it worth their while? Do they feel valued in order to retain these guys? I'm very fortunate, and I'd like to see our other volunteer stations be a lot like the one here in Diamond Point. We drill as a unit, as a station. Every week we drill together, and we built that team. That team effort around for protecting our area within Diamond Point and Gardner. I would like to see that moved out into the other stations, particularly down in Dungeness and on the west side of our area. But in a lot of respects, the people that I talked to within the volunteers, I find out, why did you quit? I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel I was necessary to the program. In a lot of respects, I just didn't feel needed. So it's a lot of effort for very little personal thing. CERT has been great. I volunteer with to train the CERT guys as well. CERT is a backup, but it doesn't count for insurance rates. It's got to be, a trained firefighter.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shamley, you have 2 minutes.
Can I just say that I would support everything that Mr. Nicholas said? I certainly agree with everything that he said and would support that. One of the issues that we do run into is the amount of time that it takes for an individual to be a certified volunteer and remain current. It is increasing exponentially all of the time. And Mr. Nicholas can certainly relate to that, and that the requirements for being a certified volunteer are very time consuming. There's a lot of training that's involved in that. The district attempts to meet those needs the best they can. And I don't have a good answer for how to make that training more available because of the time constraints that are involved. Just continuing to provide what incentives that are available would be the focus that I would pursue. And again, I would agree with Mr. Nichols 100% with everything that he said.
Okay, thank you. Now, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Mr. Shamley, you will be first.
Thank you, Linda. In closing, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for their dedication to the education of the public by hosting debates and forums like they did here today. My wife and I love living here. We're doing our best to be good citizens and to contribute where we can. We're both community emergency response team members, and we also had the opportunity to participate in many of the recent Jamestown drive-through COVID clinics down there at Blakely Park. I believe I can make a real contribution as a fire district commissioner. My knowledge of fire department administration and my experience as a professional firefighter allows me to see the commissioner's duties from both the firefighter and management perspectives. I'm a member of the International Association of Firefighters and Local Chapter 2881, and I respect union issues. As a taxpayer, I also want a fiscally responsible district. If elected, I will uphold the responsibilities that the state of Washington requires of a fire commissioner as outlined in the revised Code of Washington, Chapter 52.14. I will also involve the community as much as possible by encouraging them to reach out to me with their questions and concerns and ensuring that the business of the commission is transparent and readily available. I plan to have coffee chats with the public and visits with other fire commissioners. I thank you for this opportunity today, and I would appreciate your vote. And as an aside, completely unrelated, Captain Nicholas, thank you very much for your service, sir.
And yours too.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nichols.
I'm running for this office because I'm committed to this community. I've lived all over the world and I have never found a place like Sequim. I started looking at Sequim as a place to retire back as lieutenant when I was stationed at Bangor Submarine Base. I've had the training, formal and informal, and experience to see a lot of the issues that are going on in this organization, a lot of which could be answered if we develop a strategic plan with milestones, concrete goals, budgets to address our key issues. Many of our key issues, do revolve around staffing, but there are a lot of other issues. The training is an issue. Professional development is an issue. All of these things need to be looked at, and a strategic plan. When I say strategic, I mean formal, with milestones, reporting requirements, measurements, and it needs to be a living document. It needs to be revised when we find we're doing better than this area or not so well in that area, or that the thing we thought was important wasn't important. And those are the skill sets that I developed both in the Navy and probably even more so working for FLIR Systems in business. These things are not unique to the fire department industry or any other industry. As a base commander, I had to do this for my fire department, for my public works department, for my security department, name it, the housing department. And one of the things that I insisted on is training my people to think in that direction, to offer the suggestions, to look at the problems, and to bring them up to the people. I am not a leader who spends much time in his office. I have been trained by very good CEOs to adopt the philosophy of management by walking around and asking questions. And I hope you can vote for me.
Okay. I want to thank you both for being willing to be candidates and for appearing here tonight. I think we had some good questions that were difficult, and we really appreciate your participation. We're now going to take a 5-minute break. I have about 7.
Thank you for hosting.
Sorry?
I said, thank you for hosting.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I was off doing something here. Okay, so we're going to take about a 5-minute break, which will make it about 7:15, 7:17, something like that, before we start our next forum, which will be for the hospital commissioners. So we'll see you in about 5 minutes. Well, our timer said that was a 5-minute break. Do we have Heather Jeffers and Steve Blackhorn?
I am here. It's not letting me start my camera. It says it's disabled by the host.
And I'm here, Linda. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Angie, a camera's disabled by the host.
There I am.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah, she must have fixed it.
Okay, so we have both of our candidates here. Thank you. We'll just go ahead and get started. Welcome back to our final panel tonight. We'll be following the same procedure that we did before. We'll have 2 minutes for opening statements. We'll have 60 seconds for answers and 2 minutes for closing statements. Olympic Medical Center, let's see now. So this is for Hospital District 2. And Olympic Medical Center in Port Angeles is in Hospital District 2 and covers the 2 Eastern County Commissioners districts. The west end of Clallam County is Hospital District 1. Each hospital district is covered by a board of commissioners elected by the voters. District 2 has a 7-member board, and we have 3 candidates running for this at-large position. Karen Rogers planned to attend tonight, but contacted me yesterday. She has a family medical emergency, is sitting in a hospital in Seattle right now, and regrets that she cannot attend. In order of their filing date, each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and answer 3 questions. your qualifications for the office, how you intend to deal with key issues confronting your area of responsibility, and what is the primary goal you hope to accomplish in your first year in office. We'll then have questions that have been sent in from the voters. There were many concerning the same issues, and these questions were combined. Heather Jeffers, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay. Hi, my name is Heather Jeffers, and I have been living in Sequim for the past 18 years. I'm married for nearly 30 years, and I have a 15-year-old daughter. I've been working in healthcare for over 20 years in multiple roles. I hold a master's degree in social work, a certificate in geriatric mental health, and a Washington State Nursing Home Administrator license. My 13 years as a medical social worker include working in 3 different hospitals: UW Medical Center, Swedish Hospital, and Seattle Children's Hospital, in addition to skilled nursing facilities. As a social worker, my role included helping patients navigate a confusing healthcare system and meet challenging discharge needs and advocating for patient rights. For the last 9 years, I've been administrator and executive director of 2 different skilled nursing facilities. I'm in charge of day-to-day operations of a 90-bed post-acute care facility. This includes overseeing all key indicators from quality of care, financial outcomes, including writing annual budgets, regulatory compliance, including state, federal, and JCO surveys, risk management, patient rights, to staff retention and staff satisfaction, and patient satisfaction, among many other things. I've also served on the Sequim School Board, and that experience gave me a good introduction and helped me learn what is involved in serving on a board of directors. I think another important qualification is my experience as a family member and a patient advocate for multiple members of my family who have been patients for our local hospital, including my mother, my grandmother, my mother and father-in-law, my husband, and my daughter. I've worked in partnership with OMC for the past 18 years, and I believe we have a wonderful hospital system. I see the key issues confronting our hospital to be continued financial sustainability, keeping our hospital public, lack of providers and services needed to meet the growing needs of our community, and ongoing staffing challenges. As we know, nothing can be accomplished by one person alone. So my primary goal the first year in office is to develop an effective working relationship with other board members and to see where I can offer maybe a different perspective, bring new ideas to the table, and start some good conversations. I have a lot of partnerships and working relationships with key stakeholders, and I plan to build on that in order to increase support and collaboration to benefit our hospital system. And I went over time, I'm sorry.
You can always finish your sentence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Steve Blackham, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Linda. I appreciate you hosting this. It's been very well run. My name is Stephen Blackham. I'm a licensed and medical technologist, medical lab technologist, and I did my training at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California in 1973. After getting my licensure with the state of California and with the National American Society of Clinical Pathologists, I went to work in a laboratory in Hawthorne, California, Hawthorne Community Hospital at the time, where I worked for about 3 years and was promoted in that time to chief technologist. At that juncture, I chose to move home. I was born and raised in Seattle, and we moved our family to Bellingham, Washington, where I served as a laboratory director at St. Luke's Hospital before it was bought by St. Joseph Hospital and merged into one organization, which gave me a great experience about merging technology and personnel in 2 differing climates. From there, I went to work for LabCorp for 3 years, which is interesting. It served a 5-state region. After that, I went to work for Southwestern Vermont Medical Center in Bennington, Vermont, and served there for 6 years. During that time, I also was the president of the Clinical Laboratory Managers of Vermont, a 15-hospital statewide network, which gave me interesting experience. And I finished my career here at my favorite place, Olympic Medical Center. The most important thing that I think we need to accomplish is to maintain the financial viability of our hospital. Because if we don't, we could be a takeover target for another hospital. And I plan to serve with the board members, many of which I know personally. There are only two that most were recently took over that I don't know, and I look forward to meeting them. The big key is collaboration with one another and working together to accomplish the goals we set out to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get right into the questions. You will each have 1 minute to answer each question. So let me get my questions out here. Okay, what are the major issues facing this hospital district going forward? Mr. Blackham, you're first. 1 minute.
Well, the major issue is the financial viability and stewardship of the hospital. We're in a unique position in Port Angeles and Sequim. We have a medium-sized hospital that doesn't really qualify for the smaller hospital financial favorability from Medicare and Medicaid. And yet we don't have the economy of scale of a large hospital like those in the Seattle area. So our biggest challenge is maintaining financial viability and figuring out how to be more efficient and using the resources we have, while at the same time keeping our employees and our physicians and our community satisfied with the medical care that we offer. So aside from reacquainting myself with some of the board members and working collaboratively with them, I hope that we can improve the efficiency of the organization.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jeffers?
I 100% agree with Steve. Exactly what he said. In addition to that, of course, is providers, lack of providers, and issues of getting staffing is a huge problem, and physician recruitment, as we've mentioned before and talked, has been a hot topic. Even with the school board, it was a hot topic. So I think that meeting the needs of our community, we see a lot of other issues that are not being met. Services are not available for the mental health and drug and alcohol dependency issues as well. So in addition to what Steve said, I would just add that there's services that are necessary that the hospital is not currently able to meet. And I think it'll just be magnified and grow.
Okay, thank you. The next question, you'll have another minute to continue what you started talking about, because it relates to the same thing. In light of our district's high percentage of Medicare and Medicaid patients, how can we assure that operating costs are fairly covered for our providers and facilities while keeping facilities financially viable? So you're each going to get 1 more minute on that. And let's see, Ms. Jeffers, you're first.
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting question, because in my line of work, the government payers are our only payers. And so that is all we have to work with. So from my experience, government payers, at least the reimbursement rates, they're predictable. We know what they are. We can forecast, and we can know what our expected revenue is and build our budgets around that. With that being said, what's most important with government payers is maximizing your revenue and controlling costs where you can, which means being as lean as possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackham?
Well, I completely agree with Heather on this. By the way, Heather, I remember you when I was working. Good to see you. Anyway, yes. The big challenge is, how can we become more efficient? Because we have capped resources. Gone are the days that we're Medicare subsidized leisure palaces like in the 1970s. We have to learn to work with fewer resources and do it more efficiently, and at the same time keep our employees as happy as we can, and our physicians. So that is really a large challenge. But I want to let everyone know that what my teams and I did for the last 35 years of my career was do nothing but re-engineer our services to capture 100% of all the marketplaces where I worked after California. So I believe that my skill and an entrepreneurial vision will be helpful to the board.
Okay, thank you. What is your position on provision of lawful abortion services by our district's hospital and clinics? Mr. Blackham, you're first.
Well, I believe in the sanctity of life, that life begins at conception. There are conditions where the health of the mother is involved, but I would discourage the provision of abortion services in the OMC-based clinics.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jeffers?
You know, I feel pretty strongly that all of our citizens should be able to receive all medical care without leaving the peninsula, without leaving the county. That being said, I realize that there's different, you know, with different services, regardless of what those services are, you have to take into account the cost of those, what it would, the revenue, all of that, if it's feasible. So I feel like it's worth a discussion. I don't think it's should be a moral issue. I think it should be, you know, we are a public hospital paid for by taxpayers. Therefore, we should meet the needs of those taxpayers if we can. But more needs to be looked at rather than just saying yes or no, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, what steps can be taken to assure that the hospital remains public, not controlled by a private group or entity? Are there pros and cons to maintaining a public hospital? And let's see. Ms. Jeffers, you're first on that.
Well, I think that yes, there are pros and cons. The pro is with maintaining public, it's going to keep costs down and serve everybody. I mean, a private hospital can deny patients. It can choose to, you know, they tend to be more expensive. They can choose how to bill things differently. So I think it is in everybody's best interest to remain a public hospital. How to do that? Again, it's the financial feasibility. So it is controlling costs where we can control costs and becoming leaner and much more efficient. And that is, and in the nursing home world, you know, we have to do so much with so little. And so I feel like I'm pretty much an expert at being as lean as possible. And so it's looking at every place you can control costs without at all impacting staffing or quality care. So whether it be, you know, staff retention, waste, cost control, all of those kinds of things, just looking for every penny.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackham?
Well, I agree with Heather. It's all about controlling costs. It used to be in the laboratory, for example, we could increase volume and really spread costs over a larger volume base, but that's just not the case anymore. Many of the private health insurers, their fee schedule is approaching the Medicare fee schedule. So it's all about efficiency, as Heather said, figuring out more efficient ways to do things with the limited resources we have. We don't have any choice. We're 83% Medicare, as many of you know, and Medicare, Medicaid, and only about 16% private pay, and only about 1%, we write off 1% of everything we do right now. So it's all about efficiencies. It's no longer about economies of scale because our scale has been limited.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question. In 2008, a little over 60% of Clallam County voters passed Washington State's Death with Dignity law, or medical aid in dying. What role does the hospital have in assuring access to this law's provisions? And Mr. Blackham, you're first.
Well, I have to be honest, I haven't studied this dignity law on the books of the state of Washington. I'm embarrassed about that. But it makes sense that we need to give dignity to those who, when they're dying, and give them all of the proper care possible. So my intuitive point of view is that yes, we need to support that law and do things and create policies and procedures within our hospital system to support it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jeffers?
Yeah, this is an area that I have both personal and professional experience with. I feel pretty strongly about dignity, end of life dignity in my work. It's what we uphold. I think that since it is legal, the hospital should support all legal services. And I think that if a provider is willing to participate, they should be able to participate in that program. I feel pretty strongly about, again, having, as a public hospital, meeting the needs of all of our taxpayers, and this is one of them. And I don't think people should have to forego that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question. And you have touched on this a little bit, but you'll have a chance now to have another minute to expand. What can be done to recruit and retain staff for our regional hospital? How do we keep employees engaged and prevent burnout? And Ms. Jeffers, you were first.
Oh boy, this is something that I know all too well, because I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Staffing and retention, it's brutal out there in this community. We're a very shallow labor pool. I've had lots of success in reducing turnover and increasing retention. I was successful in year 2020 during a year of COVID to reduce my turnover rate from 75% to 28% at my facility. So I know all this too well. I think that there's a lot of things that can be done in partnerships with, whether it be with a community college, with the programs there, but really what needs to happen first, it's hard to answer. We have to know what it is. We have to have the data and know what it is that's causing the turnover. So that would have to be looked at first, but I have a zillion ideas on different staff retention and recruitment strategies that I don't have time to talk about right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackham.
Yeah, wow. I think the key to retaining personnel and also recruiting them is the way that the manager of the department treats his or her employees. Happy workers are those that feel respected in what they do and feel that respect is recognized by those who the team members they work with, to include the managers of the department. So to me, that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing to retaining employees is having successful teamwork and the employees being valued. And so if there's a way in our governance role to encourage communicating well with our employees, I think that's the key.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and again, it's something that you've touched on in terms of budget. Please share your thoughts on the hospital budget and how it reflects the community health needs assessment. And Mr. Blackham, you're first.
Well, Linda, I wish I had a good handle on the exact budget right now. I have to confess that I don't. However, having read our strategic plan in depth, I know we're pointed in the right direction. You know, we have a goal of having no more debt than 33% of equity, which is very, very sound. We have a goal of having more than 39 days of accounts receivable. So the hospital's objectives are where they should be. And I'm interested to really see what's happened during the pandemic, because I have no idea how that's impacted the budget. I'm sure it's impacted it in somewhat of a negative way because we've had to pare back services. So I wish I knew exactly what the budget was, but I'm confident we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jeffers?
Yeah, I agree with what Steve said, and I would just add to that. Again, the part that's the unknown that I have is I don't know what monies the hospital system receive from the government. I know that for the COVID funds, there's been a disbursement to all different kinds of healthcare facilities. So I'm not sure how that comes into play, but I filled out the community needs assessment in my work, and so I know what my answers were. I think that we're headed in the right direction. I've looked at the community needs assessment and the budget. I see that there's still some parts missing. We still don't have services that can be provided for geriatric mental health is one example. People have to be sent off the peninsula all the time. So that's an area that was prevalent in the community needs assessment, but I don't see a plan for that. So I think it deserves some more look at that and drilling down.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. How important is diversity of thought on a public hospital district board? Ms. Jeffers, you're first.
Well, I think it's very important. It wouldn't be a functional board if everybody had the same opinions and thoughts. I think it's really important to have every thought, various thoughts represented. I mean, that's why we are elected positions, right? It's supposed to be speaking on behalf of constituents. So I think it's really important to have those discussions and to bring up different thoughts because we serve the whole county.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackham?
Well, I completely agree with Heather. Everyone on the board has different backgrounds. I think both Heather and I would both be valued members of the board because we have a new perspective that the board hasn't seen, with Heather in long-term care and with me in medical laboratory science. So you don't accomplish things unless you have diversity of thought. Issues need to be discussed, they need to be debated, and then the important thing is that once the board makes a decision, that they move forward in unity with that decision. And that's the most important thing, that the decision made, that the board moves forth in unity. But diversity of thought, we can't do without it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to our 2-minute summary statements, and it'll be in reverse order of the opening statements. So Mr. Blackham, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Linda. First of all, I really appreciate the opportunity to participate tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I think I would bring something unique to the board that hasn't been there, at least in the 20 years that my wife and I and family have been in the community. You know, having a medical laboratory scientist on the board, I think would be a first. Having managed complex technical budgets and had teams that put together very successful outreach programs for our laboratories, in the laboratories that we work together in. I think that is something that will add value to the Board of Commissioners. I have read the strategic plan in depth, and I believe that the board has already done a very credible and laudable job in governing the district. Healthcare is complex, as Heather and I have both expressed. A very, very complex operation. And I think we're approaching it as comprehensively as possible. One of the things, though, that I think we should do as a board is look in the rearview mirror about how we've handled this pandemic with our policies and procedures and see if there's anything that we have learned from that. I would hope so. Anyway, I look forward to working in the board, and I would be grateful for anyone who would vote for me. And I thank everyone for your time. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jeffers, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay. Well, first of all, of course, thanks to the League of Women's Voters for organizing and hosting this forum. I think it's very helpful. my experience in daily work and my 20+ year career, I think would be a great contribution to the board. On the bright side, I think that all the candidates are qualified, so it's a win-win for everybody, regardless of what the outcome is. I am passionate about improving the delivery of healthcare services to everybody. I'm passionate about improving quality. I have a solid understanding of Medicare and Medicaid and the challenges that come with these government payers. I have a proven success in improving quality of care, reducing turnover, increasing staff retention and staff satisfaction, improving patient and staff satisfaction, and improving financial outcomes. And I want to have the opportunity to utilize my knowledge, my skills, and my experience to be that added value to the board and make a positive difference in our hospital district, as I know that I can. And I don't think I need 2 minutes because that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. So thank you both for being willing to be candidates and for participating this evening. It was interesting. I've been doing these forums now for quite a while, and normally, I don't know if all of you are familiar with how we do it in person, but people get up in a line and they stand up, they say their name and where they're from, and they have 30 seconds to ask a question. And then all of the candidates get to answer the questions. And it was interesting this time having the questions come in written. And it was interesting to me and different how much the topics were the same. So I think tonight, I hope tonight, this is what I tried to do. I took all of the topics that people were interested in and were able, so that you were able to speak at each one of them. And we've done that with all of them tonight. I hope people feel that their questions were answered. Of course, we'll be having more forums for the general election, and we're hoping to do those in person and work even closer with the North Olympic Library System, who co-sponsors our forums this time. And we're hoping to have some in the libraries in person towards the end of September. We'll be getting those dates out as soon as we have that confirmed. I also definitely want to thank Bonnie and Angie for their technical assistance tonight. Those skills are most necessary, especially when I'm involved with it. And I especially want to thank everyone who sent in questions. They were all thoughtful and informed. So please go to our website, lwvcla.org, for a link to the YouTube taping of what we did tonight. And all of ours will be posted on there. There'll be another one in Port Angeles on the 8th. And after July 9th, don't forget to check out vote411.org. It's a site where you'll get a lot of good information. And so our goal is that by the time you get your ballot, you're going to have all of your questions answered. And then you can sit down in the privacy of your home and vote for who you choose. Everyone has that right to do that. So I thank you all once again, and a good night to everyone.